Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Alhamdulillah. I want to welcome all listeners to the first ever episode of Let's Talk with me, Uzair Shafiq. Obviously, I announced on Instagram that I'll be launching this series. Many people have asked me to do a lot of talks and explain to the youth in terms of inspiring and motivating. So I thought, let's just start a mini podcast. Inshallah, we'll see how this runs. Today is my first episode. So let's see how this goes, inshallah. I've seen a few podcasts myself online, but I want to get to the real world and real life feeling and experiences out in the open, which people can relate to on the platform. So let's see where it takes us. Now my first guest today is our local imam and a friend, I'd say, Maulana Tokeer. Assalamu alaikum, Maulana Sahab.
Wa alaikum salam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, Uzair.
I want to thank you for taking time out to sit with me, inshallah. Second of all, thank you, a big thank you for opening the masjid doors for me. We're having this mini podcast, this discussion here. Alhamdulillah, it's been 3 months, so it feels quite amazing to be inside the masjid. So just a brief introduction to Maulana Sahab. Maulana Sahab started his studies in Darul Uloom Bolton in 2004 and completed his iron course, graduating in 2010, alhamdulillah. So we've got quite a bit of knowledge with us. Inshallah, the aim of this podcast is for everyone to take some sort of benefit from this, apply it to their own lifestyle, to their own experiences or their future with their children or the youth themselves. The word youth will be used quite a lot in this. When I say youth, I don't mean just 13 to 16-year-olds. I mean the 18-year-olds, 23-year-olds as well. So Maulana, first of all, how's lockdown and how's it been treating you?
Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Inna alhamdulillah wa salatu wa salamu ala Rasulillah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. The lockdown, well, it's been strange because obviously we've not experienced it in our life ever.
Yeah.
And we won't imagine that within a few months that the whole world will come to a standstill. So there's negatives and there's positives to it. Many ulama have mentioned a lot of good things about this lockdown. And obviously the negative was that it fell in the month of Ramadan. Now the month of Ramadan that's just gone past has been one of the most strangest Ramadan we've ever had. Because Ramadan, especially for men, is connected to the masjid, and the masjid being closed, that was something strange. And for us as well as imams, we would all day prepare our dars, be delivering our dars, our speeches. But this Ramadan, not having people behind you to read namaz, so it's been strange, yeah, alhamdulillah. But the positive things is that ulama mentioned is that people have had the chance to ponder over their lives. They've sat down at home, nothing to do. So a lot of people, spoke to my family members. They've mentioned like good things that, started making change in their life, which they probably wouldn't even thought about during the lockdown. So alhamdulillah, we have to remember as Muslims, it's from Allah. So whatever it is, we just turn back to Allah, inshallah.
No, alhamdulillah. I mean, I don't know about other people, but personally, I don't think I realised the importance of the masjid and the unity it's bring to the whole community. Obviously, we're always here. Everyone sat around till late night, till suhoor time. People are sat in itikaf until a couple of months ago, until they shut down. So it's been a huge part and factor in life. So inshallah, we make all masjids open again soon, inshallah.
Inshallah, yeah.
So, are you ready, Maulana Sahab?
Yeah, alhamdulillah. Before you start, I'd just like to say Jazakallah for inviting me on your first podcast. It's a great initiative because obviously, even before the lockdown, if we see most of the youth, or not even the youth, it's become a trend that we taking our deen from social media and internet. So that's why it's important that we have the right knowledge, because on the internet, even though there's a lot of good and khair, but there's also a lot of evil and bad. So sometimes what happens, we take the evil thinking that is good. So that's why I think it's a great initiative. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala accept it from you, make it beneficial for us and all the listeners, inshallah. So inshallah, let's start, brothers.
Inshallah. So I'm ready as well, so let's talk. So my catch line, just to let you know, because you're the first one, is, are you ready? And just first say, I'm ready. And I say, I'm ready. Let's talk. So let's carry on, inshallah. So the first topic, Maulana Sahab, is namaz. Obviously, really important. How important is Salah in Islam, and could you stress its importance in a person's life?
Namaz, Salah, obviously, as growing up as kids, right from the age of 5, 6, when we went to Maktab, we've been taught on how to pray namaz, and even our teachers have explained the importance of namaz. So we all know the importance of namaz. We know that it's a pillar of Islam. So the Prophet ﷺ mentioned in a hadith that Islam has 5 pillars, and amongst them 5 pillars, one is Salah. So these are like fundamental actions and commands from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. We learn regarding namaz that namaz was all the commands that came down from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, be it fasting, hajj, zakat, and all the other commands. Jibreel alayhi salam brought them down. So it was via Jibreel alayhi salam. But namaz is something, this stresses the importance. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gifted namaz at the time of Mi'raj. So we know Mi'raj, our belief is that the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam physically went from Haram, from Mecca to Jerusalem, and from Jerusalem to the heavens, and he went beyond where even Jibreel alayhi salam couldn't go past. And he went to the court of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. They had a conversation, and at that time namaz was given. So the reason for this, Allah ta'ala, why we need to ask, why did Allah ta'ala chose namaz for this, to give at this time in Mi'raj? Why could it not be in fasting? Why could it not be in hajj? Or why did it give anything? Why it should have just been a conversation? So it stresses the importance of namaz in a Muslim's life. So we know the importance. Every single Muslim, you meet anyone on the streets, you ask them about namaz, regardless how they are, they will say namaz is very important. You have to pray namaz. But what I want to discuss about, because namaz, we know, like I said, you ask anyone, you ask someone who's never come to the masjid, but he's a Muslim, you ask him about namaz, he'll show full respect because he knows the importance of namaz. But what I want to touch on, because this is important, because we haven't got namaz in our life, so we need to know that we need to know why we haven't got namaz in our life and how to bring namaz in our life. So within a few minutes, inshallah, I want to discuss this, because everyone knows we have to pray namaz. It's 5 times farz. There's no point going over that. Because we already know. So we want to talk about real things that are happening in our community, because we know that this is something that used to be said about 10 years ago. I used to go on Jamaat, and the elders used to say that 90% of the ummah, this is 10 years ago, 90% of the ummah is not praying namaz. And only 10% of the ummah is praying namaz. And from that 10%, 5% are praying it properly and 5% are not praying it properly. So if that is the case, Allah knows best if them figures are true or not. But we know, judging on our own locality, let's just look at our own locality, Queensgate area, for example, where our masjid is based. We know that a very small percentage come to the masjid. So them figures will fit in our area. 90% are not coming to the masjid. We know that. 10% are coming to the masjid. And even from them 10%, we can know that 5%, unfortunately, are not praying it properly because they're not learned it. So the question is why we're not praying namaz, and how can we bring namaz into life? So why is it all comes down to our concern of the hereafter. And this is with any actions in our life, how our life is. Our life is dependent on how much we fear or worry about our hereafter. If we don't fear the hereafter or have our concerns regarding our hereafter, then the actions of Allah and the commands of Allah will be difficult to practice. Because we're not worrying about the akhirat, we're not worrying about, we had Sahabas radiallahu ta'ala, and just mention quickly about Hazrat Umar and Hazrat Abu Bakr radiallahu ta'ala anhuma, two of the greatest companions of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. They were guaranteed paradise in this world. We know that. The Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam told them in this world, while they were alive, that, "Oh Umar, you're going to Jannah, oh Abu Bakr, you're going to Jannah." So this is a guarantee from the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. If it was me, that I would have sat back and thought, I'm going Jannah because Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam told me. But this same Sahabi, Hazrat Umar, used to say, because of the fear he had on the Day of Judgment, that I wish I wasn't even born, so I don't have to face the Day of Judgment. And sometimes Hazrat Abu Bakr radiallahu anhu would see a bird, and he would say that I wish I was this bird, so I don't need to have worry and concern of the Day of Judgment. So these are Sahabas, companions, guaranteed Jannah. They're definitely going into Jannah. But because of us not having concern for the hereafter, these are not very important things in our life. World has become, the world, unfortunately, because the time we're living in, because Allah mentioned in the Quran, Shaitan will beautify the world. So the world's being beautified, and because we're chasing the world, we're not worrying about our hereafter. And I think that's one of the main factors why we're not praying namaz. Because if someone really had the concern of the hereafter, they would definitely pray namaz, because they know it's compulsory. We always say, we always hear this, it's one of the first thing that will be asked in on the Day of Judgment.
It brings me to I want to say, if the first question in the grave, one of the first questions is about Salah, and we don't pass this, Maulana, so what's going to happen to the rest of the questions and trials? There's a lot of fear that brings into
That's what ulama say, that this is a sign. If you not pass that question, that's a sign of your failure. And if you pass that question, that's a sign of your success. So that's why, because we're not even worried, when have we, even myself, I'm involved in this as well. When was the last time we sat down and thought, what's going to happen to me in the cupboard? What's going to happen to me on the Day of Judgment? And these things, these are reality. We have to wake up, because people are, people young die, all die. It's not because I'm young and healthy, I'm not going to die. End of the day, death will come, and it can come at any time. We've had youth in Burnley, are fit and healthy, and they've just gone and left the world. I think this is one of the main concerns why we're not praying namaz. One is that we don't have fear of the hereafter and what's going to happen to us hereafter. Second reason is, and this probably will be mentioned in every point when it comes to amals anyway and action, is our friendship. And this is something that I want to touch upon in this point before we move on, is our friendship. Friendship, Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam told us in a hadith that a person is on the religion of his friend. Meaning that however our friends are, that's how we're going to be. So we see that. So if, for example, if I've got 10 friends and 9 of, out of them, 9 of them don't pray namaz, and I'm the 10th, then naturally I won't pray namaz as well. Because I'm with them all day, chilling out with them all day. So if they're not praying namaz, I'm not going to pray namaz. But if you flip it, if all 9 of them are praying namaz and I don't want to pray namaz, but because all them 9 are praying, then I'm going to have to pray namaz with them as well, because I'm chilling with them. So friendships is very important. Inshallah, maybe some other time.
No, inshallah.
We'll take on. So
no, Jazakallah for that informative on the first topic. A lot of people, Maulana Sahib, have them, including myself personally, in the past, alhamdulillah, I've kind of moved on from it now, but sometimes they come into the person's head. So I've just, before coming to the masjid, for example, I've just sinned, and I sinned an hour ago, and I also sinned yesterday, and it's very likely that I'm going to sin again tomorrow. So I'm thinking in my head, there's no point me in praying namaz, because I've just sinned major sins, I'm talking, for example. And I know tomorrow I've already got this planned. So why should I pray now? Is Allah even going to accept it? That kind of mentality, people that are thinking this kind of thought, what would you say to them?
Yeah, that's a good point. I think that's probably everyone thinks like that. The youth, especially who are involved in major sins, so involved in drugs and major sins, they're probably thinking, why should I pray namaz? Because I'm going to carry on doing the same thing. So first of all, we need to understand this one point, that these are two different actions. So just because you're sinning, that doesn't mean that you don't fulfill your the things that are made compulsory on you. Yeah, they're two different things. So it's no good, saying that I'm sinning, so I'm not going to do good. That they're two different. So it's still compulsory upon you. Second thing I want to talk about is acceptance. That will Allah accept or not? End of the day, no one can say. I can't say to you, Uzair, your namaz is not accepted. Yeah, because that's between you and Allah. Your heart knows, and only Allah knows your heart. I don't know your heart. So you might be, sinful, but in your heart you're regretful, and you're praying this namaz, regretfully, and having that mind that I still need to pray my namaz. So we should never ever think. I'm gonna tell you a story about a person I know very, very personally.
Okay.
Very personally, I know him. I want to tell you how he changed his life, because it totally links with this question of yours. This person was involved in drugs, not just taking, selling. So he was taking heavily. He was heavily on drugs. In his young age, he was known as King Corone, King, Chronic, weed killer, things like that. So this guy's, they're involved in drugs, selling drugs, and every other bad things you can think of in the book. So when someone would see him, it's one of those you'd say, this guy's never going to come to the mosque. And he wouldn't, even go Jummah, even if he went Jummah, he would go high, or he would rather miss it. So that's his, I'm talking about 15, 20 years ago. That same person, very personally I know, he's the imam of the masjid, and he's changing so many people's life now, 10 years on from that time. Let me tell you how he changed. I know him very personally. he changed because of one namaz that he started while he was stoned, meaning he was high.
Under the influence
of drugs. He didn't even complete his namaz. But that changed his life.
Subhanallah.
Now, if I see someone on the street high and knowing his story and say, look, because you're high, don't pray namaz. But knowing his story, this guy, he was like off it. And he changed his whole life because of his one namaz. He said Allahu Akbar whilst he's high. He got this in his mind. It could be from Allah, definitely from Allah, not even could be from Allah. Whispered in his mind that your namaz is not accepted. It was like a voice to him. He broke his namaz. He feared so much that because of that action of his, that immediately within months he changed his life. It wasn't over a night thing to let go of everything, but it was just few months because of that salah, which he didn't even pray. So that's why I always tell the youth, it doesn't matter how bad you are. It's you and Allah. Forget what if next person says your namaz is not accepted, you're not allowed to pray namaz in this state. Forget that. Yeah. If you want to pray namaz, pray your namaz, because that namaz, Allah says that namaz is an action that stops you from doing bad. Like this brother, like I know personally now, mashallah, he's the imam of the masjid.
Mashallah.
Mashallah, youngsters, same. At one time, when parents used to, tell their children to stay away from this guy. Now, all the parents are saying, go and hang around with this guy. Because of this one namaz that he didn't even complete. Wallah, it's ajib the way he changed his life.
What an amazing story. Totally for myself here, it's hit my heart, that story personally. I'm sat in the masjid, I'm in the state of wuzu, so I can personally say that, but those listeners, inshallah. So if anyone's going through this state, people that are just thinking about the small sins they do, they look at the sin of this brother and how he changed, mashallah, Maulana Sahib mentioned. So jazakumullah khair for that, Maulana Sahib. We'll move on to the second topipic. Is there anything else you wanted to cover on that in terms of namaz and prayer? Or
no, just last thing, just for my youth, the message to the youth regarding this. It doesn't matter how you look, it doesn't matter what state you are. Go to the masjid and pray your namaz. And if you haven't got the courage yet to go to the masjid, go home and pray your namaz. Inshallah, one day you'll have courage to go. But don't just pray your namaz. Whichever namaz you can pray at, just pray. Don't worry about what you're doing or how you are.
Alhamdulillah, perfect message, Maulana Sahib. I'm just going to move on to the second topic, Maulana Sahib, relationship and marriages. Now, this is a huge topic, of course.
Yeah, interesting one, this one.
Very interesting topic as well. Yeah. And I'm sure a lot of listeners will be, of course, the first part was very important. This is also important as well. It's a big topic. We're going to all day discussing this, but we're going to focus on the main points. Obviously, we're aware of time. Maghrib's in an hour as well, inshallah. So you probably were, Maulana Sahib, the elders, maybe back in the day, maybe in your generation. Maulana Sahib's not old, by the way.
I'm not old, man. I'm not
a lot of them probably got married, like my parents, or for example, or anyone else's, the Pakistani culture, or Indian Muslim culture, or whatever Bengali you want to call it. They must have got married in the family, and they feel as though the same should be for this generation. But a lot of the youngsters, the youth, are against that. Would you agree times have changed, and is it eligible for a youth to argue with the family about not wanting to marry in the family because they may be too close to the girl or the guy? What's your stance on this?
Well, like you said, this topic it's an individual topic that we can go on for ages. So I'm just going to mention a few points regarding this issue. First of all, the time, we always say time changes, but people have changed. Time always remains obviously the same. It's just a phrase, time changes. But time doesn't change, time is the same, but people have changed. Environment have changed because of the people. Again, environment is made from people. So environment changed because of people have changed. So when our parents, when we talk about 50, 60 years ago, how they got married and the way they got married, I personally think that totally that way, 100%, it can't be done in this day and age, fully. I'm not saying that it's the wrong way, but it's just the way, because we have to understand where our children have been brought up. And on this point, I want to mention, before I carry on, this all depends on the parents' upbringing of the child as well. It's a very important point, actually. I want to mention this.
It's going to come up quite a few times, but yeah.
This point will probably come up
it will.
A lot of time. It all depends on the upbringing of your children. if you gave them an Islamic upbringing, they'll be more easier to, when it comes to marriage, it'll be more easier to go about it. The question about being for the child is it eligible to argue with the parent. First of all, when you can't argue with the parents, that's not eligible, because Allah Subhanahu wa Taala in the Quran says don't even say off. That's a different topic about parents. But Deen tells us that a person, be it a girl or a boy, cannot be forced into marriage. This is a choice of the person who's getting married. So no one can force it. So unfortunately, even in this day and age, we have parents that try to force their children to get married to someone they don't even want to get married to. So this is totally against Deen. This is against Deen and it's against Islam. First of all, we don't give them Islamic upbringing. We let them free. We let them do whatever they want. Yeah, and when it comes to marriage, we totally become, as parents, we become like dictators that no, you have to get married to this person or you have to get married to your cousin. You know, them times are gone. Them times are gone. Where in our parents' time, they probably might not even seen each other until the first night. Meaning after marriage. Even in the nikah, they might have not seen each other. And I'll tell you a story about this. Stories relate to...
People can relate
because the story is very important. And this is like in this day and age.
Okay.
So I had a friend of mine, he's an alim. It's a funny story. He told me this himself, so I can vouch it that it's the truth. And I know how it ended up as well, because it ended up in a divorce, his marriage. So and this is in this day and age. So he graduated alim and he had this false thinking. I would call it false thinking, where you can't see the girl before marriage. That's a false thinking, in Islam, that you can't see the girl before marriage. That's not true. In fact, you should see the girl before marriage. Yeah, because this is not a joke. It's not like Nike trainers. My nephew loves his Nike trainers. He's one of those that spends hundreds and thousands. And he last month he met me and he goes, Mamu, you know what? You can design your own trainers, Nike trainers. I go, is it? That's fine. And he showed me he designed his own. So I went online and you can design your own. Yeah. So it's not like changing your trainers, getting married. This is an important part of your life. So if you're going to get married, you need to make sure it's done correctly. So first of all, this is a false philosophy of thinking that way. You can't. It's not allowed in Islam to see the girl. So anyway, this friend of mine, he had this false thinking, and I think he, became like they call it in the term of mashayikh, they call it khushk Sufi, dried Sufi. Yeah, that I'm gonna accept my parents' choice, and I'm not gonna see her before the night. So he goes to me. You know what? My mum said, "Kuri soni hai." Yeah, they say that kuri soni hai. So I thought,
standard.
It's standard. If she's, she's good looking. Mum saying she's good looking. So alhamdulillah, that's fine. So they got married, and the first night, they saw each other on the first night. When they're going together, and he said to me, this is his words, Maulana, when I first saw her, I didn't like her. That was his heart.
First time.
First night, his heart told him that he doesn't even like her. Now, if that's the first night and his heart's already made that, remember the heart is the main part of the body. That's going to live with you the rest of your life. Right. So he said to me, the first night, I didn't even like her. And my mum, when she said it was funny when he said that. When my mum said that, Kuri Sonia, she meant that she's physically fine. She's got eyes, she's got nose, she's not disabled or anything. Yeah. She's in that way. So, end of the day, after 2-3 years, he had a child with her. But after 2-3 years, we knew where it was coming to. If he's not liked her on the first night, and that it ended up in a divorce anyway.
It was a lot of the time. Yeah. I guess it's maybe because he probably stood by her because just to keep the parents happy as well a lot of the time, because people don't want to see make the parents upset. So that becomes difficult for the child as well, I guess.
Yeah, parents in this day and age, you have to understand, especially generally speaking, people living in England, because we're talking about England. We're in England. We've been brought up as we're British. End of the day, we're British, and we've been brought up in England. So we have to look at the lifestyle of our children, and each family is different. Each family is different. There might be one that's brought their child really practicing, and the child has left the marriage to the parents, which is the ideal way. But then again, even in that situation, it's still the girl or the boy's choice. So alhamdulillah, the child, this is the best ideal way. The child has left to the parents, that the parents will choose my spouse. Once the parents have chosen a spouse, now it's up to the child. Or not even the child, obviously if they're getting married. Now it's up to the girl or the boy. If they don't want to get married to that person, they can kindly refuse that. Look, I'm not with this one. So that's the ideal way. So one is that they've left their child right from the beginning until now marriage age loose. That do whatever you want. This person's been in and out of in his house. He's had girls. He's messed around with girls. Now you expect him turning around and saying to him, "You've got to marry my niece or my nephew in Pakistan." That's not going to happen. And at the end of the day, you know what happens? This is a message to the parents, any parents listening, that what parents tend to do is use this guilty conscience on the children. And this is totally wrong. They make their child, feel guilty. That, we brought you up, we've done all this to you, we've raised you up, and now look, and, they shed tears. So obviously the son or the daughter
feels the emotion.
Emotional
blackmail.
It's emotion blackmail, that's the word, emotion blackmail. And this happens a lot. Parents do this. And it's wrong. At the end of the day, it's your son or daughter that's going to live with this person for the rest of life. So we have to, we have to create that relationship from our parents. Again, it goes back to how we brought the children up. If we brought them in the correct manner, then inshallah, 99.9%, it will be an ideal way of marriage, meaning it will be done how it's supposed to be, where the parents choose and the child accepts it and they get married. If you brought them up that way, then inshallah that's how it's going to happen. But if you're not brought them up that way, then what will happen? Let me tell you something, Uzair. What will happen? This boy or this girl will go get married because of your emotional blackmail, and bring that poor girl over. But then on the side, he'll have someone else outside. So you'll be messing up so many families. That poor girl that's come from Pakistan, it's not her fault that she didn't know that he doesn't want to get married. She got married, come here, and this next man's got another bird outside because he's not happy with her. So this marriage issue, inshallah, one of your podcasts, whoever you want to invite, but keep it specifically for this issue.
We'll do a different separate debate.
So we can talk on it a lot because it's very common. Divorces are so common.
Of course, yeah. No.
Marriages are not lasting for like a few years now. In this new age marriages, we see it's so commonly that after a few years they break up, and we need to take these marriages very seriously.
No, inshallah, that's fine. So I'm just gonna move on swiftly. So focusing on this point, you've done quite a bit, but I'm just gonna say there's parents that are out there, so they might be advised by their child so I might go to my parents, or someone might go and say, look, mom, dad, I found someone, and maybe you can take it ahead of their family, because I don't want to take it any further, not to commit any guna. So a lot of parents may lash out and get angry and how dare you, etc. It cause a lot of trouble for the child and a lot of families. But I think one of the main important things personally, which I think is lacking in the Asian culture and the community, is parents telling their children from a young age, at the age of maybe even 13, 14, it might sound very young, but in this day and age, saying if you know anyone, or if you maybe get to know someone that you think maybe fits in the family at college or year 11, whatever, uni, whatever, then let us know and we can look into it. And that gives the child, the youth, confidence to say, you know what, my parents are confident in me, they trust me, so I know this girl and she's educated, I'm in the same class and we've been talking, nothing, no guna, nothing haram. I can confidently go back to my parents and say, look, this is the case, if you want to discuss with the family, we can do so before we emotionally get attached to each other. But when parents don't give them that kind of warning and the child is scared to go to the parents and tell them about this, it's all guna and haram things happening in the background.
You hit it on the nail, that's how it should be. The relationship with the parents, again, this is for the parents, not for the children. The parents need to build this relationship.
A lot of the time it's the parents, I won't say fault, but they need to pass that message on in a better manner at early age, instead of, it's not just the child's fault.
Exactly, you're right. They need to build a relationship with the children, that when the children come to this age, they're very confident on speaking to the parents about it. And that's the ideal way. You know, if the child found someone, it's the ideal way is let the parents deal with it now. But like you said, unfortunately, the parents are not ready to accept.
They just lash out. Also, if anyone listening to this podcast at the moment, if someone has a girlfriend or boyfriend and nobody knows about this, we've touched on it briefly, and this is a hidden relationship. If someone listening right now knows they've got a partner and no one knows about it and it's hidden, it's a haram relationship, right now, someone listening, what advice would you give them in terms of moving forward and keeping it halal to avoid any sort of sin?
Well, it's like you said, the best way is if you're involved in any haram relationship, first of all, it's, you know, it is end of the day, it's haram. That's end of story. We can't, you know, compromise. We can't argue with it. Best way is talk to your parents. That's the only way out. Talk to your parents. Make them understand that I've, you know, and really that should have been done right. That should be the first stage. What happens usually is, this is the most important point, and we'll finish on this point, that what happens usually is we tell the parents at the end stage, when our emotions and our hearts already taken over, and, you know, it'll be very hard now to separate. So if parents say no, or if you find out that this wasn't the right person, your heart's going to be hurt. So the first stage should be that if we found someone that we like, we tell our parents and they'll deal with it. But if you're already involved, like you said, you're already involved, you got a girlfriend or a boyfriend, you've had them for a year, maybe 2 years, and you think that this is the perfect person for me, then don't wait, just get it. Go to your parents, make them understand. If they don't understand, get an elder of the family who you got a good connection with, they're understanding, they're respected within the family. Get them to speak to your parents and get it done as soon as possible. The sooner you can get your nikah done, then at least you're away from this haram act of this haram relationship. So I think the best way is speak to your parents straight away. If you think your parents are not one of those that will understand, then ask another elder of the family, maybe your older brother, older sister, uncle, auntie, anyone that you can, you got a good connection with. Get them involved and get it done the halal way as soon as possible, inshallah.
Jazakallah for that, Maulana. So this is obviously, I've got a full page on this. Every other topic is quite small, and I know you really want to, we can, again, inshallah, I'm sure people will listen. We can go again into details, but I'm just going to ask you a few more pointers, which are really important, that stood out to me. Now, this next point, it really gets to me and winds me up. I don't know about you, I'm sure it does to you as well. But the deal, I know you're going to ask me maybe 10-15 minutes, but obviously, like I said, we don't have time. There's the big deal in our culture made about caste. Oh, they're a mochi, oh, they're a nai, you can't marry them. What will people say? What will they say? But the funny thing is, in my head, nai are the ones charging 20-30 quid for a haircut nowadays. They're the most minted ones. I mean, in a sense, Maulana Sahab, can this be called racism? They're mochi, or we're bigger than them, we're Chaudhry, we're this, we're that. And I know a lot of it's back home, but even now you hear of it.
Yeah, this casting still goes on. It's not gone. Even in England, it's not like it stopped. The casting still goes on. There's a few points in here. First of all, it depends how you look at it. If you look at it in the way that you think you're better than that caste, then this is wrong. This is, it comes in, you can call it racism or prejudice or anything. But one point is to understand is that when it comes to caste, is obviously a minor. Sometimes it's like a different, you're two different person, like one's like Pakistani and the other's Bangladeshi or whichever country. So this is it's not a common thing. Out of 100 you might find a couple that are married out of like a totally different, out of a different country. But one thing we have to look at is mentioned in the books that it is best to find someone that's similar to you, similar to your home, that understands you, your culture, your ways. There's more chance of working out. But then this doesn't prevent though marrying out of. It's not like it's haram. So that's why we have to look at it in two ways. One is that if you're in this mind that no, we're better, or that caste is lower than us, or he's a Bengali and we're Pakistanis, how can you marry a Bengali? This is wrong. This shouldn't happen. Ideally, the marriage should be is better in a way that you find who's similar to you, to yourself. Yeah, that's the ideal one. But if someone falls for someone who's totally different culture, different background, different language, yeah, then that doesn't mean that we're not allowed to go get married, or the parents should say that no, he's totally different. We shouldn't stop our children if they want to marry someone out of caste, or even out of our culture, or even totally different country. That shouldn't be the case. The case, yeah.
And also, if you take this situation outside of marriage, you see maybe back home more than here, people walking around saying I'm Chaudhry, and making like maybe the lower caste, if you want to call it, whatever you want to call it, the people that are working on the shoes and the hairdressers, pointing fingers at them, or in a way treating them in a way that they're so low, making them feel like a piece of dirt on the shoe, if you want to call it. Just to these people, a message to these kind of people that have that sort of ego and kind of the 10-man walk kind of
this is haram.
This is racism.
This is racism, and racism in Islam is haram. End of story. And because Allah mentioned why He's created caste and different, that's to recognize each other. Different. For example, I'll give you an example. If I say to you, do you know that Wasim is a good friend of mine? You're gonna say which Wasim? I'm gonna say Chaudhry Wasim.
Oh, yeah.
So Chaudhry Wasim. Yeah, I know Chaudhry Wasim. So it's to recognize people. Yeah. When it comes to status, in the eyes of Allah, the only difference between status is how more pious you are. And Allah mentioned that the difference between people, or the status, depends on piety. So racism is totally haram. And those people, think that they're better than them. It comes down into takabbur. And we know Prophet ﷺ mentioned in a hadith that a person who has even a small minute iota of takabbur in his heart will not enter into Jannah. So me saying that I'm better, that means I've got takabbur. What's English for takabbur? Ego. Ego. So that is haram at the end.
I thought so, but I just wanted to clarify the position. Just another thing, the Asian culture, the Pakistani, there's a lot of problems in here. You think about issues in our culture, the Pakistani especially. Divorced women, Maulana Sahib, in a way they're looked at in a way which isn't the best, and they kind of look down upon. Like you said, divorce, the word is being thrown about nowadays. Like it's a piece of whatever. It's a bit of fun. I've done that, divorce done. I've said it 3 times or whatever else. But it's very sad that these sisters are looked down upon, and many of them struggle to marry again. Why is this the case? And is there anything we can do in terms of as a ummah or community? I know it's been going on for years, and I know I'm not saying we're going to say something that's going to totally change it, but is there any way?
The only way is to have these discussions, make them people aware of these situations. Divorcees, shouldn't be looked down at.
The Prophet, peace upon him himself, subhanAllah,
married divorcees, so that shouldn't be the case. I think it's just a cultural thing again. And when it comes to culture, if it's in line with deen, then alhamdulillah, take that. If it's not in line with deen, it's a time that we let go of our culture that's not in line with our deen. We have to move on from this.
That's a great point.
We've progressed in so much. We have to progress in this. That if our culture is in line with in our deen, then alhamdulillah, stick with your culture. But if any part of our culture is not in line with our deen, then let go of that part of the culture. Then inshallah we'll move on. So again, this is just cultural thing again.
Inshallah. And if any of the listeners are in the process of looking for their spouse, what would you say the main things they need to look for? Obviously, people say looks and this, that, and the height and everything else. But what's the main?
We've got hadith on that as well.
Few points that need to be looked at.
We've got hadith on that. The Prophet ﷺ mentioned, to the nearest meaning, if I can remember correctly, that there's 4 things that you should look into a person. It says his deen, his akhlaq, which is his character, his looks, and his lineage, his nasab. In those days, it was about caste. But in these days, we can say, how would I put it in this day and age? We'll stick with nasab. But the main 2 things, the Prophet ﷺ said that, but out of the 4, the main thing is the deen. Look how a person, how much deen that person's got. If it's a girl, how much Islam has she got in her life? If it's a boy, how much Islam? Secondly, akhlaq. These 2 things I think we should concentrate on. Because at the end of the day, the love, Allah puts love into people's heart. Yeah, so if the looks are important, don't get me wrong. Yeah, you got to like the person. Like I told you the story of my friend, he didn't even like her. So that's not gonna work out, is it? So looks are important. But looks doesn't mean that she has to be a perfect, very most beautiful. Everyone's beauty defined is different. In each country as well, beauty is defined in a different way. In some places in Africa, they have, women, they have like big holes in their ears, massive holes, and they're dangling. That's a sign of beauty for them in that country. But if we look at it, we think, what an odd, ugly looking thing. Yeah, because it's not something normal for us. So, but for them, so beauty defining is for every person. Beauty is different. So you don't, if you like a girl, but look at the character. Character is very important. Yeah, and they both have to. You have Deen, Islam, and character. Because you can be Deen dar, but you can be a really bad character person, and that unfortunately is not a good person then. Yeah, because character is marriage. Remember, even though marriage is a command, it's a sunnah of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. It's from the deeds. It's a good deed, but it falls into mu'ashara, meaning living together. So when you're living together, what matters is character. How is that person? Is he? If he's a man, if he has he got anger problems? He's going to start beating him up and everything. So I would advise, if you're looking for a spouse, is look at deen and character. Yeah, inshallah, the beauty, the looks and everything, Allah will put love in your heart. But if you got someone who's practicing, and when I say practicing, proper practice, like the deen that Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam brought us. And secondly, he's got good character. And again, when I say good character, that means his character is resembling the character of Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. Then you will live a happy life. Yeah, and if you have these two in a spouse, deen and character, then alhamdulillah, you'll have a good life, inshallah.
Jazakallah, Maulana, like I said, we're going to touch upon that topic. We're going to have a different debate. I know there's a lot, we can spend another hour on that itself. We're going to move on to the third topic now, inshallah. Again, this is another huge topic, always discussed, you always hear about it, even in the media, social world and everywhere else. Again, we'll keep it short, inshallah. Maulana, if you celebrate Milad, I can't call you a kafir. And if I don't celebrate Milad, do I become a kafir or suddenly as someone who doesn't love the Prophet, peace be upon him? Yeah,
you know what, everyone knows my stance on this, because I openly say it in our...
And this is why I brought you to this... this is why I brought you to this interview.
I remember, alhamdulillah, Muaz al-Haqsa, alhamdulillah, Allah Ta'ala grant him.
Ameen.
I think when he made me imam here, well, I learned so much from that person. I take him as my teacher. So I learned so much from him. I remember when the first Milad came when I was imam. So when I became imam, the first Milad. So my Jummah, when it was my Jummah. So I did it on Milad.
That's it.
And when I went in the office, he goes, I remember guys and Hajisa was sat in the office. He goes, Muasa, mashallah, aapne to Milad ko bilkul jaiz kara diya. You know what guys was like? Allah Ta'ala give him Jannatul Firdaus. What an amazing person. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala make this building. Every sajda, every good deed that takes place in this masjid, sadqa jariyah. So anyway, everyone knows my stance on Milad, but to just quickly touch upon it, I think this topic is dying out, alhamdulillah, within the youth. To such an extent, it's not as bad as how it used to be. It might be still in our elders, but within the youth, we all understood the stance of Milad. Yeah, it's not a fundamental belief. You going into Jannah does not depend on this belief. That do you believe in Milad, do you accept Milad, or do you celebrate Milad or do you not celebrate? Believing in Milad, everyone believes in Milad. So I don't even like using these terms, Deobandi and Brahmis. Obviously Milad is between these two groups really. Well, there's earlier these kind of things, but we'll stick with Deobandi and Brahmis. I don't like using them terms. I just want to make that clear. But obviously because we're talking about Milad, so what was I going to say? So we all accept Milad and we all value, the birth of the Prophet ﷺ, the month of Rabiul Awwal. Our great ulama of Deoband used to celebrate. And when I say celebrate, we have to understand celebrate because it's an English word. Because when we say celebrate, what comes in our mind? We think of parties and cakes. Yeah, so the reason why these ulama made Milad, the ulama of Deoband made Milad, if you read their books, that we shouldn't celebrate it. Because in those days, and it happens, you'll see it now on YouTube, people go over the top. Yeah, they actually do celebrate, like proper parties where cakes are bought. I've seen one on YouTube where they were singing happy birthday to you. That's that's where it goes beyond, and that's why the ulama said that, you know what, the people have took this next level. You know, like the Christians, you know, took Isa al-Islam, they went beyond respect of Isa al-Islam and made him the son of God. So that's what, you know what, we all accept Milad, we all understand the importance of the birth of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. But I think that's dying out now anyway.
Yeah,
I don't think that's an issue, alhamdulillah. You know, our ulama, our youth have understood that it's not, if everyone celebrates Milad. You know, I asked once an imam of one of the Goshia masjids that in month of Rabiul Awwal, if I was to sit at home and do Durood Sharif because it's month of Rabiul Awwal, what do you think? He said, that's celebrating Milad. That is Milad. So
I think the word celebrating,
is that word celebrating?
The word celebrating, which has been taken out of proportion, and people, and I could say celebrating means just doing Durood Sharif.
Maulana
Sahib could say celebrating means having a party.
Yeah.
Someone else could say mean having cakes. So
you know, the bottom line on this is within limits of
within
deen.
the limits, yeah.
Within the limits of deen, we all do it. You know what? Unfortunately, in our youth, the one who's not been told or still not got out to this point, they'll just say, there's Milad happening in Goshia Mosque today, astaghfirullah, how can they do that? But the next day, we'll have a bit beyond on the seerah of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam.
Yeah.
It's two different names, but the exactly same things happening. If you go to their Milad, they're doing Naat on the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam and the seerah is mentioned. If you come to the seerah conference, the Naat on the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam and seerah is mentioned. It's exactly the same thing. You call it Iron Brew if you want. It doesn't really matter. So yeah. I think, but again, like I said, I think this is died out now. Alhamdulillah, this is gone out. You know, Milad thing. We all understand each other's stance. And what was said before, remember that was said for that time. That's another thing, people. So they'll pick up a fatwa book from a Deobandi that was written in the 60s or 70s, and it says it's a bid'ah to celebrate Milad. But at that time, you have to understand the reason why they said that. You know, people were going crazy, you know, that proper celebrating with parties, like having parties. So this is the reason why they said it. We're looking in our time and look at your specific town and everything. Don't look at what's happening in Pakistan in some village, bichare that are so far, no one's gone and told them about them deen. So they're just doing what they think is deen. So if they could, you know, celebrating and going crazy over this Milad thing, going beyond the limits, don't judge the whole ummah now.
Based on one village.
Based on that one village there, but you know, it was our job to go teach them. If no one's taught them, that's their part of their understanding of deen. Let them be. But alhamdulillah, I think we should move on from that. Milad is gone. You know,
alhamdulillah. Very interesting as well. Maulana Sahib, obviously here in the masjid, when it comes to Ramzan and Eid, half of Maulana Sahib's family,
not half, all of them,
all his family, we can
all
say,
my family,
all his
my
family,
immediate family,
all his immediate family is very interesting. They celebrate Ramzan on a different day, the second day, and they also celebrate Eid on the second day.
If it falls on a different day.
If it falls on a different day, and Maulana Sahib celebrates the first day. So subhanAllah, and they still get along, and this just shows the love between the families and how it doesn't have to be an issue. So inshallah,
I want to touch on that one because Milad and this was a different issue. So 1-2 minutes on this one. You know, this moon sighting thing. None of us are, you know, even me, I'm not.
Who is right? My next question was who is right, who is wrong? And many people just follow the local mosque, so they're like, they don't.
Also, if that's the question, I'll answer that as well. Yeah, we're all right. That's bottom line is we're all right. Yeah, both groups are right. Yeah. We've been told by right from beginning, Deen, you know, Kaisar used to say this, Deen itaat ka naam hai, meaning Deen means to follow. Yeah, so our teacher, Nabi sallallahu alayhi wasallam, then teachers, you know, ulama came and teachers came to pass on the Deen. So we follow our scholars. It's not for every Tom, Dick and Harry and any layman to sit down and, you know, sometimes we sit in the mosque, especially in Ramzan, you know, after Fajr, we like to sit around, especially itikaf time. Bachare itikaf boys, we sit after Fajr and it goes to 8-9 o'clock in the morning, discussing these topics. And if we look at it, first of all, there might be, in that whole group, there might not even be a single alim. And you're discussing an issue that's for ulama. And secondly, in that whole group, none of us have studied astronomy or anything about moon sighting. And we're doing big debates. So leave this for the scholars. End of the day, if the scholars are wrong on the Day of Judgment, we are not going to be asked.
Alhamdulillah.
We're not going to be asked. So why should we worry about it? And if the scholars did it out of thinking they're right within Sharia, they're not going to be asked as well. If they got the proofs, and the reasons, and just say that them proofs and reasons were wrong, even they're not going to be asked. As long as they didn't do it for their ego. The scholars didn't let go of an issue because of ego. So Ramadan and this moon sighting thing, inshallah, a time will come when it'll all go back to normal. Yeah, there's a history of why we why we left Morocco and started following Saudi, why people started come back to. This is a long topic. We don't need to. The best thing to do is
just leave it be.
Follow your local masjid. Yeah, whichever masjid you go to, follow them. Don't say he's right. Don't say he's wrong. I'm telling you, they're both right. They're both right.
I remember your bayan a few years ago, a couple of years ago on Eid Day. You were saying if you want to do Eid today with us, then you do Eid today and it's accepted. If you want to do Eid tomorrow with someone else, you go do it with them and it's accepted. If you want to go day third day with Pakistan, then it's still accepted, inshallah. So it's done, alhamdulillah. We've got 10 minutes remaining on the clock. I'm just going to move on to the fifth topic.
Alright, yeah, come on, inshallah. Let's get on.
So this is to do with the youth. There's a big problem on the side at the moment. You obviously know, I know myself. Again, another topic we can probably go on for a long time.
Man, all these topics are...
they're just major topics. You're trying to fit, and obviously it's my first podcast, so quite a bit of excitement, but we'll get you on again, inshallah. So, there's a huge problem. I'm not even talking the cities, Manchester, Birmingham, Bradford, London. I'm talking about our small towns here. The behaviour in terms of money, cars and drugs, speeding up and down the roads, hanging around street corners at a young age where they're heavily influenced by the money, how easy it is to earn a monthly income in a few days. Again, parents play a big role in this. What message can we give to them, and what message can we give to a youth or someone that might be listening to the age of 13, 14 that is actually drug dealing today, working for someone that's 21, 22?
Yeah, well, first of all, to the parents, and here I'm talking general because everything's general. We're not looking at few cases because there are sometimes there's a case where parents are not practicing and mashallah the children become really pious and practicing. And there's sometimes the cases are that the father might be a big alim but his child might be a big drug dealer. Yeah, so these are some cases. But I'm talking on a general basis. Yeah, it's all depends on the parents' upbringing. Yeah. How you brought your child, and then again, like I mentioned again, later then obviously it's out of the hands if the child goes off the wrong track. If you fulfilled the right way of upbringing and the child went on the wrong path, then that's But generally speaking, if you give them a good upbringing, and good upbringing, when we say Islamic upbringing is not beating them up and waking them up for Fajr. That's not Islamic upbringing. You kick your child or at Fajr time, or get up and pray your namaz. Zohr time, you slap them and pray namaz. Sit them down, and that's not Islamic upbringing.
Not forced. They want to do
Islamic
themselves.
upbringing is making a good relationship with your child, and teaching them the deen and the character of Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And that can only happen if the parents are doing it themselves. Unfortunately, majority of the parents are not practicing deen themselves. Yeah. So because they're not practicing deen themselves, it's very rarely. It only happens in a certain cases where the children will be deendar, but most likely the children will not be deendar. And if they're not deendar, then it's more likely for them to go on the wrong path. Yeah, I'm not saying they won't go on the right path, but most likely we're talking about more likely here. But if you gave them a good Islamic upbringing, then they're more likely to be saved from going on the wrong path. So that's why parents is very don't look at this or start from the age of 7. Yeah? From 1 to 7, Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam said play with the child. So you should play again within the limits that Islam's given us. Today, unfortunately, and even I'm involved in this, technology and tablets and phones. I'm 5 years old.
Keep them disturbed, yeah.
And it's just an easy way for I'm a parent as well. It's just an easy way for us to keep them busy and not so they don't get us don't give us a headache all day. And we give them a tablet and make them sit down. It's very detrimental. I remember when Sheikh Hassan Ali came here for 3 days, he mentioned that he in his home, his children, now they're grown up, but it was only 1 hour a week that they were allowed to go on the tablet, because that's how this tablet and phone is destroying people. But anyway, you need to give them a good Islamic upbringing, become their friends in a sense that some people take this wrong way. Because I mentioned this in one of my bayans when I talked about parents and children. I mentioned that become friends. And then some people take this wrong way. That doesn't mean literally friend that they think literally you're his friend, because the respect and that value of parents go down. Then that same child one day will turn around and say, no, do one, because that's how friends speak. When I say become friends, is that the child, when they're growing up, shouldn't need to look anywhere else. They should first, when they're in problems, the first person that should come in their mind to solve it is my dad or my mum. And I need to go speak to my dad and mum about this. So then you can guide them. But if that's not the case, they're going to ask someone else. And if whoever they're going to ask, they might guide them to the wrong path. So start from a very young age. At the age of 7, start giving them good upbringing. Keep them away from bad. And inshallah, most likely, these child will be, kept away from evil when they grow up. Because the main age is the high school age. When they're primary school age, they're mainly masoom. And we see in our maktab as well, that until they're in year 6, this child, really masoom. And the only bad thing he does is maybe talks or calls someone potato, and that's their bad thing.
Yeah.
But as soon as year 7 comes in, we see, whoa, this child totally changed now. Yeah. It's because obviously the peer pressure and everything kicks in. So this is the age where, unfortunately, what happens, this is for the parents that are listening. Parents take their children out of the maktab. Yeah. Usually at the age of 10, 11. Why? Because they finished the Quran. Because usually maktabs, they finish the Quran at the age of 10, 11. Like we finish our Quran at year 6. So parents take them out. That's the only connection they had with the masjid, and someone who, who is Islamic, who can tell them good things. Now they're taking them out and they've got no connection to the masjid. So and when they go on the wrong path, then same parents come and say, Maulana, I made dua for my child, or can you explain? But you took him out, you took your child away from us at the age of 10. This was the main age where they're going to go off the wrong path. Before that, inshallah, they won't. Before 10, very rarely you'll see someone under 10 that's drug dealing or something. It's after that age. This is the main age where you keep them connected with the masjid and keep them connected with the teachers of the masjid. And alhamdulillah, we're living in an age that every masjid have British-born imams and teachers that have been brought up in this country that can relate to them.
They know what goes on.
And our kids love us. They talk to us, like I'm not even into football. Yeah. I stopped following football when Robbie Fowler used to play for Liverpool. I was a Liverpool fan. And in those days, it was Robbie Fowler, McManaman, forgot the keeper's name, David James. Yeah. So that's a long time ago. After that, I've not followed football. So we're talking...
So they talk about that kind of stuff and you kind of engage with them.
So what I do now, I go on the YouTube BT Sport channel. It does 3 minutes highlights.
Yeah, videos and stuff, yeah.
3 minutes of preview. So I watch them because I know I've got my new fans and hardcore my new fans in my class. So when because I know my Liverpool fan, Liverpool was on a streak in the season. They were on a streak, innit? And then they lost against Israeli.
Watford.
That's the one. Watford. Wallah, I'm not lying. I'm not into football. Yeah, the way I'm talking, you might think, Maulana knows about football. It's all because of that 2-3 minutes I watch, so I can relate to my children. So we got hardcore Liverpool fans. So the next day I go, I actually said to him, Allah ni marzi, but afsos, inshallah, don't. So we got teachers. So don't take them out of the mosques. Finally, message to because we got a few minutes left. Message to the youth who are in their teenage years. Look, lads, this is a very important. You either make your life now or you break your life. This is your chance now. Either you choose the right path and live it. I know I'm 33 years old. Yeah. I know people that are doing the same things that they're doing now at my age when they were 15. Yeah, because they chose the wrong path. They're 33 on the 40s and they're doing things that they used to do when they were 15. Yeah, because they chose the wrong path.
The mentality is still there.
Don't spoil your future. Wallah, this is, drugs, this is all temporary buzz, temporary happiness. But in your heart, this is my last message. Yeah, because time's going to finish. And we can go on. Whoever's listening to me, youth who are on the bad track, before you go to sleep today, ask this to yourself. And ask sincerely that, are you happy? Just ask that to yourself. And wallahi, I can tell you, your heart will say you're not happy. So that means all these drugs, cars, money is not making you happy. So if that's the question, then inshallah, come and contact me, come to the masjid, and inshallah we'll sort it out for you. So my last message, I'll repeat again. Tonight, before going to sleep, or whenever you listen to this podcast, before going to sleep, if you were involved in drugs, cars, money, ask yourself that, are you happy?
Jazakumullah khair, Maulana Sahib. There's a few more points, but we can do them next time. I want to thank you for your time. Once again, really appreciate it. Inshallah, the listeners will benefit from the discussion. May Allah guide us all, inshallah.
Inshallah.
Thank you to the listener for tuning in. Our first ever episode of Let's Talk, and inshallah we continue the good work. Jazakumullah khair. Assalamu alaikum.